Counselor Yoder. We are at roll call. All right, Vice Chair Potter. Here. Commissioner Bieber.
Here.
Commissioner Lapine.
Here.
Commissioner O'Daniel.
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes is excused. Commissioner Siebold.
Here.
Commissioner Spencer is excused. Commissioner Townsend is excused. Commissioner Walker.
Here.
Commissioner Widener.
Here.
Commissioner Yoder.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum. Thank you. We are at an opportunity for any public comments. Do we have anyone that is in the room this evening for the Madras Redevelopment Commission or online that has public comments for the Madras Redevelopment Commission? All right, looking around, I'm not seeing anyone indicate they have public comments. With that, we will move to the to amending or accepting the MRC agenda. We have not received any amendments to the MRC agenda, so we don't require a motion at this time. We will move to the next item, which is the MRC consent agenda. Again, no items that have been added to the consent agenda, so we do not require a motion. With that, we will move to the regular agenda. Item 1, the US 97 streetscape, and I believe Jeff Hurd is the representative regarding this issue.
Yep. So before you is a staff report, and it's a discussion about doing streetscape as part of the upcoming ODOT project, which is the US 97, the Earl to Colfax project. Back in 2015, when ODOT came through and they did the J Street project, we asked them to put in our streetscape standard for the downtown, which is 6-foot walks, a 4-foot paver strip. You put in the tree grates, you put in the trees, you put in the decorative street lights, you add in the irrigation to the street lights to be able to hang the flower pots, and then we run power to the trees so we can do the Christmas lights. And so back in 2015, they were able to incorporate all that. And so up right there is kind of a couple of pictures of what it looks like, of what the work they did back then. And so they're coming through again in 2026. However, with funding limitations, they're not able to pay for it. And so what they've said is they're coming through and they're doing the ADA ramps, they're doing some reconstruction of the pavement. And they said, hey, city, if you'd like us to incorporate your streetscape standard, we're happy to do that as part of the project. However, we can't pay for it this time. You guys will need to come up with the funding. So the first conversation started actually back in 2018, because back at that time, they thought they would be doing the project by 2022. And so if you go back in time, at that point in time, we came to MRC and asked MRC, hey, do you want to contribute to this? And they said, yeah, let's put up 300,000. And so they put 300,000 in the budget towards streetscaping, because at that time it was thought, hey, we'll be able to add more money as we go because the project's a few years out, but it's not going to be until 2022. So next budget cycle came around, the project's been delayed. It's now 2026. And so in the budget, there was still the 300,000 shown, but there weren't discussions about increasing it or adding more. And there's been several staff changes that have happened. And so ODOT's then come back to us because they're getting close to where they need to make a decision. And there was a work session, I think, back earlier this fall. If I wasn't here at that time, but we've had a discussion about it with city council. And the way it is if we want to move forward with, there's basically 2 blocks that we can look at doing. And it's the sections on 4th Street from Pine Street, so up there by NNS Tractor, down to B Street. And what ODOT's telling us is to add in the sidewalks and streetscape that are standard on the west side is about $500,000, and to put it on the east side is another $500,000. So we're looking at $1 million if we want to do those two blocks, both sides is where it is. So, pretty much it's just, we need to have an answer back to ODOT because at some point in time, because if we want to move forward and do some of it, we need to commit the funding and pay them. And I have a typo here. I said January 24. It's January 25 is when they'll need their payment by. So right now we've kind of given them a verbal, yeah, let's move forward. And so they've expended dollars on design. And so tonight it's really a discussion of, okay, do we want to continue and do the west side? Knowing that it's 500,000, do we want to throw in the east side too, make it $1 million? Or do we want to do nothing at all and just hold back and just compensate them for the design that they've spent so far? I don't have the exact number yet. I can come back and get that. But if that's the way we want to go, I wasn't able to get that at this point in time. So that's really kind of where it is. And then Kate, I'm not privy so much on the MRC finances. So Kate's here. She's got, if there's any financial number questions, she can kind of talk through that as to how that would look with the upcoming bond and whatnot. And so you guys can decide on what you want to do. So that's pretty much it.
I've got two questions. Do we think those numbers are reasonable? 500,000 for each side?
It's just what it's gonna cost.
Well, and
Yeah.
and the second question is, do we have it? I mean,
That would be,
that's
that's
million-
where Kate
that's
would
$1 million,
come in to
you know?
talk about, do you have it? You're right.
So I can answer, looking at the project list that was tentatively approved for this in MRC was $500,000 in the fiscal year 25-26. But the payments required in January of 2025 for 500,000 for the one side. We would have to budget that, and that would be part of probably the bond funds that would, be, the bond presentation that we plan on presenting to MRC is likely where those funds would have to come from. So you would be financing this project. And the numbers coming in right now are in the ballpark for bond, would be up to 7.5% if you wanted to fund this. So like I said, it's on the list. There are opportunities. As Jeff said, there's 3 different options really. If you want to move forward with one side, 2 sides, or just pay the fees so far. But
Can I ask, Jeff, does Public Works have a recommendation? Like, what do you guys think? Are you staying agnostic, or do you guys think this is good value for our dollar? I want to know from Jeff, and also I'd be curious, Kate, what your opinion is from a budgetary point of view. I'd love to hear the experts weigh in to help us.
So from a perspective of MRC in the downtown, and if you wanted a consistent downtown revitalized for development, I think this is a great idea. From a standpoint of cost-wise, the cost is the cost. I mean, things just cost a lot of money. Do you need it? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you can always, as town develops, you can make it a condition of development. But then again, look at the trade-offs as when we did the south end. I mean, look how nice that looks. It's the entrance to our town. So if you're wanting to spruce up the town and make it look good, then I would say this is a great idea. But you would be financing it. There is no, your return on investment's kind of like a soft return, right? That you're not going to get a payout per se on property taxes. You're doing this to beautify the town, to hopefully draw customers to come in and develop, but you're not going to get an exact 1-for-1 sort of thing. It's not like a property tax investment.
How common is it to do one side of the street but not the other? Like, is there benefit to that? Like, one side still kind of looks not optimal, the other side optimal? Like, I don't know, it just kind of seems odd to me.
It would seem odd to me as well, but it can be done. Things can get phased in. We've done these things before, but I mean, like, again, it all comes back to what look are you going for? You know, this is your first thing they see when they come into the couplet. Do you want them to see what's there now? Do you want them to see one side finished? Do you want them to see both sides completely finished? It's kind of how do you want your town to look, sort of thing.
Who's gonna do the maintenance on this?
We always end up doing the maintenance on this, so we do always take care of the irrigation and the right of way. We also do the street lights and we also hang the flower baskets, so.
Do you have a dollar amount on that or?
No, I don't, cause maintenance on it's pretty minimal. It's just a drip irrigation system. I think your biggest increase, you'd probably expend like another, I don't know what we spend on flower baskets a year. Is it 20, 30,000 or something like that? But we'd probably increase it by about 5,000 for flower baskets. Would be my guess.
I fully support the improvements. Because like you say, it's a gateway to our city. And it really would improve the look coming down from the north. You know, at the last meeting, I believe we approved a motion or approved a motion to have a grant writers find a grant for us to pay for an environmental study on the Opportunities Foundation property where all the tractors are. So maybe we did the west side and left it up to the redevelopment of all of that. Made that part of a
You can do that.
redevelopment plan where a developer might, plant
Mhm.
trees or whatever.
It is required when a development comes in, they're required to improve their adjacent right of ways up to our code. So, they would do that. So it's kind of how do you look at it? You want to look at it as you're taking a burden off of the developer, to maybe entice somebody to come and develop that property? Or do you want to say, no, this really is the developer and that property can develop and they can afford to do that sort of thing,
Well,
That's what you're
and
kind of weighing.
perhaps a developer could find a better price to do the same thing.
They would. A developer would be able to do it a lot more reasonable than any public entity.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Can I ask you, Kate, if, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have a recommendation? I wish we had the cash. I hate, because I agree, absolutely. Here's what I would say. I think if one is bullish on the future of Madras, which hopefully we all are, I'd like to think I am, and we're trying to bring in investment, we're trying to beautify the city, we're trying to rebrand the city, we're trying to follow models like Sisters, et cetera, then you can make a pretty compelling argument that this is a great investment in the future of our city. So, and I'm amenable to that. The thing I really don't like is that we're borrowing at 7 or 8% for something that has no return on investment. It's just, beautification. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a best practice or if you have a recommendation. I don't want to put you on the spot or try to make you make one if you're not comfortable, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are about the fiscal prudence.
Well, like you said, we don't have the cash. So it would be financed. So we would have to factor in when we go out for bond, there's 500,000 to $1 million less that we could loan out and see a return in payment and interest. So we would truly finance this project. So that's just something to consider.
I'd say this, I'm in favor of, the beautification, but I'm not in favor of us spending the money right now. Maybe table it for an amount of time. I pay for the engineering, for ODOT for whatever they've done for their architectural work, and then revisit it maybe later on, if we have like a big project coming in, or maybe like you were saying, a builder or a developer coming in to develop it, maybe address it at that time.
I was just thinking, in the Marine Corps, there's a saying, your first impression's your last. Improving the image of our town when they come in really says something when people come in. I think it'll attract more people coming to our community and that sort of thing, but I agree with Commissioner Yoder that I'm not really comfortable with financing that whole amount, especially at that interest rate.
So if we don't streetscape it like the rest, are we still gonna get nice sidewalks and that kind of stuff in that area, or are they just gonna leave it dirt?
They're only improving ADA ramps and they're putting in, they have to reduce some accesses, so they'll do that, but they won't update sidewalks there. They are gonna still put in sidewalks over there by Busy Bee where it's fallen off the hill. They are doing that piece, but they would not upgrade any of the existing walks. They would leave that out.
So just, I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So in terms of like as the highway goes through Madras, both sides of it, they would go in and update the like where there are crosswalks, the existing
Yep,
ADA issues. So
yes.
for what's there, and what this would do would be to potentially put in sidewalks where there aren't some and have it match the streetscape piece.
Yes, so you have yes, you would end up putting sidewalks in down on that can you go back to the pictures of the existing so they can see what it looks like? So there you go. You can see like right there on the bottom left by NNS Tractor. There are some sidewalks and then it switches to pavement, right? But then beyond that, there's nothing. And then on the other side, you can see there's a little portion of a sidewalk there on the other side, but there isn't much going down the side. It's kind of like a hodgepodge type sidewalk. So they wouldn't mess with that. What they would do is they're consolidating some accesses. So when they do that, they'll reduce some of the driveways and close some down and fill those in, but they wouldn't come in and put in the full blown, our new sidewalk section with and the pavers. What they're proposing because of cost, to reduce costs, is they're going to do a stamped concrete instead of doing the actual physical pavers. So they'll look like pavers, but they'll be truly concrete. But they would put all that in. If we don't do anything, then they just wouldn't mess with it. They would just stick to the corners, upgrade the ADA ramps. They'd end up being like bulb outs in certain areas. And then they would just change accesses. And then they were going to be tearing out the pavement and redoing that, but that's all they would do.
And then Nick, did you have something you needed to say?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Wanted to point out that the Opportunity Foundation appears to be one of the more stickier properties to redevelop in the city's downtown area. And it's been that way for over 20 years. And one of the challenges with the property is certainly the price. The owners are asking for many, many years far above market. But when you look at that site, it's a very challenging site because it fronts 3 streets, north and southbound, 4th and 5th Street, and then also B Street. So when you apply the city's development standards, when development occurs there, inevitably, they're going to have to improve 2, if not 3 frontages of that property. In effect, it's like a city block. It's very expensive. And so an investment by the city to improve the infrastructure around it removes one barrier for redevelopment. That's point number 1. Point number 2, the MRC debt finances all of its improvements or projects. So whether it's a bond or a line of credit, you finance everything with debt and repay it with property taxes. So if there's concern about debt financing, regardless of any project, would be a public-private partnership for a new development on the property, you would still debt finance that as well. Wanted to be clear on that. And I just think that this is just such a key property in our downtown area. Infrastructure is some of the most expensive aspect of redevelopment work, and an investment by the MRC to reduce that barrier would go a long ways. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Nick, is it your recommendation we do both sides for the full $1 million?
You know, I do think that would be a great idea. I don't have all the financials in front of me. Ideally, I would like to bring this back to the MRC, have a conversation with our finance director, and really look at our debt situation to figure out if that is a possibility. Because if there is capacity to, finance this a year from now, there may be some opportunities or avenues to achieve that I'm just not prepared to share with you today and couldn't represent. So I guess another way to say it is maybe hold the phone for a second. Maybe we can look at our finances and find some options for you to finance this moving forward.
Can I just call on, we have our city administrator had a hand up, so just allow him an opportunity to add.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. My thoughts are I've worked in 2 communities where we did revitalize the downtown and it made a significant difference to the look and feel, and it actually encouraged some of the storefront owners, building owners, to rehab their existing space. My challenge is if we pass on this, we're going to have to pay ODOT back for any design work they've done, and we will get no direct benefit from it outside of the design being paid for. So if we're gonna have to borrow the money in a sense to pay them back anyway, we might as well take a look at what that would do for sections of the downtown. Now, to Nick's point, would things change in a year? They might. But my fear is that if we pass on it, we'll get a nice big bill from ODOT and we'll have nothing to show for it except some design plans to put on the shelf. So I'd really encourage the MRC to evaluate it, consider the $1 million investment to do both sides of the street, to really encourage the redevelopment that we need, and basically provide a nice frontage for folks that are driving north and south through Madras. Thank you.
So what is the payment schedule for this whole thing again? So if we did go the whole $1 million, we already have 300,000 in there. When do we have to, what's the time frame? Does that give us time to do, as Nick said, look at those other avenues that may benefit us in the future?
To answer the question on the 500,000, we would move it into the budget proposal for 24-25 and add 500,000 to it to make it $1 million. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, we would owe the $1 million January 2025.
That's what they're asking for, is to be paid by January of 25. But we could also talk to them about if there's a way, if we had a commitment, I could go back and ask them, can you stretch out, say we do a down payment? And could we stretch that out a little bit? They might be willing to work with us on that.
And then we could review what we have coming in. As Nick said, we do have property tax. We also have other payments coming in. And we can take a look at how that ties together with the bond we're talking about.
Well, I support that.
Yeah, the more we're talking about it, my support for doing the $1 million is increasing. I do think that we need to beautify our downtown, make a big investment in our city. So yes, it is debt financed, but that's just unfortunately the nature of government, and the entire MRC by definition is debt financed. So at least this is also something that, one of the things I often focus on is I like the democratization of the benefit. It's a whole part of the downtown part of our city that we all get to enjoy every day as we drive through it. It's not just going to one private party. So I do like that component. So we all kind of get to benefit in it. So I think I'm amenable to doing the $1 million. I do think, Jeff, that as you said, we need to maybe push back and work with ODOT. I don't feel like they really need the whole $1 million in the account on the front end, January 25. I'm sure maybe that's what they'd prefer, but even if we need to make some sort of written agreement or something so they're not concerned we're gonna walk out on it, I think maybe we can do it over ideally January 25 and January 26, something like that.
And I think we can. I think their biggest thing is they kind of need a decision. They're at this point in the project, it's like either we're gonna move or we're not. We just need an answer. And so I think what we'll end up doing is I'll call Carrie and Bob and see if we can do an agreement to pay it out over time.
Counselor Yoder, did you have an additional question or discussion point? Sorry, I cut you off with the city administrator.
No, that's fine. I was just trying to think about a few things. it's kind of hard for me to see us spend $1 million on that type of beautification when there's so many other things that I think we could do that'd probably be more of an asset to us. But one of the thoughts that I have is what about making this some type of incentive type of improvement that if somebody does buy that particular property, maybe the MRC would step in and help do the sidewalks and stuff at that time, whether I still think that, I mean, I've worked with ODOT before myself personally, and I know for a fact that a private contractor can get it done a lot cheaper than what ODOT can. And I've seen it happen quite a few times. So if somebody were acquiring that lot that the Opportunity Foundation has, maybe we could create some type of incentive to work with them that we could get those street improvements done for less money than what we're spending right now with ODOT. That's my thought.
That's a good idea. Can I ask how big of a difference is it in the price? I know it's very rough, but is it like a 2 or 3x or how much of a difference from your personal experience?
One of my personal experiences, and this was probably 2008, so pretty big difference, but there was a property close to Brightwood that ODOT wanted to come in and put a turn lane, and we could have had all the work done with our private contractor, signage exactly to ODOT specs, and we could have had it done for about $650,000, and ODOT wanted to charge us over $1 million to do that specific transaction. So for me, it was a pretty big difference, especially when you're talking about a private, it was actually concerning a private RV park. So, you know, two different scenarios, but I just know from experience that that's usually what I see.
Another option is if Michelle brought this up, we've done this in the past where the city's gone in and improved stuff ahead of time. And then we set up a reimbursement district on the improvements that we've done. And then when a developer comes, then they pay us back for the improvements that we've done, and it's proportionate out. So that is an option too.
Nick, did you have something additional?
Yes, I wanted to respond to Commissioner Yoder's comment that for as long as I've been at the city, 15 years, we've been open to working with a private developer on assistance with the infrastructure. I think the challenge is that it hasn't worked for 15 years. And of course, part of that is the asking price, but that's almost an acre of land. That's one of your largest pieces of land in your downtown area. So, you know, I would ask, yes, we would always want to partner with a developer on, you know, reimbursing them for their expenses to improve the infrastructure, but that hasn't worked thus far. So maybe we need to change tact and invest in the infrastructure. Of course, I couldn't tell you what sort of investment will result in this, only afterwards, and only then will we judge it, whether that's a worthy choice or not. But it is a key property in your downtown in that it's visible. It has, to be perfectly honest, the infrastructure is substandard in all regards, and the cost for the infrastructure replacement is a pretty significant number.
Do we have any safety studies in terms of, I'm wondering, you know, obviously there's the obvious beautification aspect of it. I'm curious if we have any information or if there's been any studies around just community member safety for that area.
For like if sidewalks would help improve safety for pedestrian type thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that we do. I mean, I don't have anything like that. I wish I did, but I don't.
Nick, just something that I'm thinking about. So we're doing some type of preliminary type design for that particular property, correct? If I remember correctly. So if we're doing that, if we added the streetscapes and things into that to make it look more appealing, would that be, and I understand, I think the number one problem with that property is they've been asking way too much. They've had some good offers on it and won't take them because they want too much for it. That's my opinion. I've seen it happen a couple of times already. So but would that be something that would maybe look a little more appealing, or I don't know?
Well, candidly, I would defer to your professional expertise as a realtor. It's my intuition that improving the infrastructure around that property makes it more attractive, undoubtedly. But you know, I would have to defer to your professional insight on that.
And if I recall correctly, part of what the MRC approved was, and I can't remember the term, in terms of a study for that space about how usable it is or what it would cost a developer to utilize that space since it has potential waste. Yeah, thank you. Something, there was like, it was brown something, I don't know, sorry. But that was part of it, where we also was the part of the scope of work to have a design plan for that block as well, Nick?
It is, and it's also contingent upon the property owner consenting to that. And to my amazement, 100% free grant for which the MRC is paying the 20% cash match. They have not returned my inquiry to them as to their acquiring their consent. So it continues to be perplexing property. I think that the challenge we have is, number one, the property owner is an organization that really doesn't do development. They're not real estate and development. They're really kind of a public service nonprofit. And so this is a challenge for them. I know they have some new board members that one of them's a realtor and another is a longtime community member. So I'm optimistic about that, but it is contingent upon their approval to enter the site so we can conduct the necessary studies.
May I just ask one last question? Both Jeff and Will mentioned that we're already on the hook to ODOT for the planning engineering, but I haven't heard of an amount. Do we know what that might be?
That's the thing, I don't know the amount. I can go get that. I failed to get that for this meeting, so I don't have that in front of me.
Do you, any idea?
No, I would think 30 to 50, somewhere in there would be my guess, is what they've expended so far, but I just need to go ask them.
Well, let me ask you this, Nick, because it won't make any difference if we move this out a couple weeks to do some better investigating on some of the other avenues that we may be able to secure some funds from. Would that be probably the best thing to table it tonight and move on in a couple
That would be
weeks?
my recommendation, but I would have to defer to Jeff Hurd. He's been working with ODOT much more closely on
Will they
delivery.
go sideways on us if you wait a couple weeks?
No, I just need to give them an answer by January.
So just in follow-up to that, and I'm just trying to think kind of realistically, is there speculation that somehow or another in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be an alternate funding source or a different estimate? I guess just, I want to make sure that if we're tabling it because we think there might be some other avenue to explore, that we have some ideas about what that avenue would be.
We don't have to make the decision till January, right?
That's when they need to be paid, so they're gonna want to put together an agreement to either be paid for design, or are we moving forward by that January date? So, I mean, we probably got a month or two or easily to make a decision, but I think really what we're missing is what the design amount would be, missing that, and then whether it could be paid out over a couple of years, right?
Well, if it's a couple months, that might be a good lead time. I don't think we have to move into it real quickly and make a rash decision. I would rather kind of table it and do some work behind the scenes and see where we're really at and what the opportunities for extra funds might be.
So Jeff, you think you can find out if we can do a payment plan and all that stuff in the next month or two? Is that?
Yeah,
thinking-
I'm
okay.
actually texting Carrie right now to see if she'll answer. see if they would give me the answer before the end of the meeting, but she's not answering.
Okay, so it sounds like we have, I don't know if it's a motion, but at least a suggestion for MRC to consider at least getting 2 specific follow-up questions from ODOT about the cost of
Yep.
the design project. And then if they would have any type of, payment plan or deferred piece on that. That may allow members of the commission and the council to consider where I would say the sort of possible motions would be one approving the $1 million to do both sides, approving the $500,000 for the one side that with $300,000 already budgeted, or canceling and just paying for the design. So it would give us a little more information on that.
Mhm.
I would also, and I don't know what kind of historically MRC has done about seeking additional public comment. I'm wondering if it would make sense to look at some additional kind of community voice around, since this is, this is city public funding. Do our citizens want to see us pursue the beautification improvement of that section? Or not, just getting that some maybe additional public voice. I know we have the opportunity for people to come here. But just, I think sometimes if we draw attention to it, either through social media, newspaper announcements of people having an opportunity to weigh in, at least for me as a member of MRC, then I find value in that of, yeah, we want, we want this investment, we want this side of town to match the other side of town. We think it's worthwhile, or what are you people thinking? We've got other projects, so I don't know if there's merit to that or not.
Yeah, I can do a poll. I can work with Jeff on doing maybe a poll that we share out publicly and get some feedback on that.
We get some safe routes to school money for that? No?
No, not on that one, unfortunately.
I would say this, I actually think Chandra's idea is wonderful. I completely agree with that. I think the more public, feedback we can get, the best. I will say this, though, I would just caution being careful how we word the poll, because people don't know the context. If you say, should we pay $1 million for this? People are going to say, I can't pay my rent. You guys are crazy, that kind of a thing. So it's a very hard thing to frame it in a way that we don't just get an automatic no. So, but I do agree with the general sentiment. I think we should get as much public feedback as possible. So it's a great idea.
That's why I asked the expert to help me, because she knows how to do that. I don't.
So I'm going to seek advice. Do I need to ask for a motion then, or
No.
we've made a decision?
We'll
we
just
don't need to make a
table
motion?
this and
Okay.
we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
Excellent,
Correct.
thank you. Okay, with that, then we are going to move on to item number 2, MRC vouchers for February 2024.
Yes, so this evening we are presenting the MRC vouchers for February 2024. There's a typo in there. The total is $204,240.14. 132,679 is for HERD payments, and the remainder is out of the MERD. And you'll see some of the reimbursements are to Initiative Brewing for progress on their project, and also the Spot. And SDGS is Willowbrook Development up kind of northwest of town. So.
Any questions or discussion regarding the vouchers?
We do need a motion for that. Sorry,
Yeah.
that wasn't in the staff report.
I move that we approve the MRC vouchers for February 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Third item, resolution number MRC 2024-01, amending the bylaws of the Madras Redevelopment Commission.
Okay, so this is, well, most of you were not here in December when we brought this back, but there were some small clerical changes that were needed in the bylaws of the MRC. Some of them were typos that we were clarifying. And when we brought this in December, it had a whole specific clause over amending the voting right of the chair. And during that discussion, it was decided that they did not want to remove the voting right of the chair. And so this has went back to the attorney for revision. And now it's coming back. So that voting right, the chair will still retain their vote as we always have. It has the clerical changes, and the main change is that we are going to be moving the MRC budget from a biennium to an annual. So it's pretty important that this moves forward.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All right, a motion then to approve the resolution.
I move that the MRC approve resolution number MRC 2024-01.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Any additional discussion before we conclude?
So I just had two quick reminders for you guys. April 9th is the next MRC council meeting. That's the night that we've arranged the photographers. So those of you that can be here as early as 4:30 would be great, so we can get everybody through before the meeting starts, as well as just a reminder that the following night, so I know it's not on everybody's radar, April 10th is the MRC Budget Committee meeting here at 5:30. And as MRC commissioners, you guys are all on the MRC Budget Committee. So 2 nights that week, April 9th meeting, pictures, April 10th Budget Committee. And that's it.
All right. It is 6:12.
Chair,
Oh, sorry. Nope.
Vice Chair, I did have a quick report on Initiative Brewing.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yes, so we've scheduled monthly site visits with staff and the chair of the MRC in the county just to see the project as it progresses. This week on the 28th, we will have our next walkthrough, and Fatma, in my absence, will be leading that walkthrough and taking pictures. It's our intention that we will email a report out, or at least pictures of the walkthrough, to the commission, just so you have some visual understanding of the work that's being completed. Last month, we went through there, and it was very apparent of why that is an extremely expensive project. They're basically gutting the inside of the building, have trenches, 3 to 5 feet deep for brand new plumbing, including bathrooms and kitchen. And it is quite impressive. So our intention from staff is to just keep you up to speed in the progress of that. And if any of the commissioners would like to join on that meeting, it's the last Thursday of each month. Please contact me. We can make arrangements for participation. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I would like to attend that.
Great. I'll do you want to attend each monthly one or just this month?
Just this month to start, and then we'll go from there. Thanks.
Great. I'll email you accordingly and give you the details for that meeting.
Add me on there too, Nick, please.
I'm sorry, is that Mayor Lapine?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
All right. Anything additional before we adjourn? All right, then it is 6:14, MRC meeting adjourned.